on, just so that people can go back, because we'll talk a little bit about like these are important things, and it definitely makes a difference, doesn't it, when you take something that's been very theoretical and you put some ideas around it, and you do some literature review, and then you actually realize that what you're doing is real, right?
Right.
And that it actually affects real people. And sometimes we find out, like when we start reading our survey results, right? Sometimes like part of your recruitment was just to invite people to participate in the survey. And Comfort, that's great. I'm going to just put a little like kind of note on your mind for you and your group. And in fact, for anyone who's working with international students, we have a couple of people working on work, housing, and mental health with international
Yeah.
students in this class, and some other students in other classes as well. But I want to really get you to even think about, as you're thinking about our class in Capstone 2. And I know January is a long way away, not as long as you think it is, but to think about, if you were going to share the knowledge that you're gaining, because you're going to write a research report, right? You're going to gather this information, you're going to write a research report. So how can you use this research? How can you use it to actually impact change? Who needs to hear about it? Do those students need to hear back from what you found? And do you need to create a resource that really clearly articulates to them what you discovered, so that they know that they're not alone, that there's more than one person who's experiencing those feelings of isolation? Do you need to communicate to Janet Morrison and the leadership at Sheridan College, right?
Yeah.
Do you need to communicate with Justin Trudeau about what you're discovering about international students, right? But I mean, I'm just giving you like just some like going from the perspective of micro, meso, macro, right? And
Yeah.
moving
I
that,
got that.
yeah, yeah, yeah. So these are all really important things. And all of you are doing really important research that involves real people. And this is different than you'd have the opportunity. And you might be like, oh my gosh, get the ethics, blah, 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 all the work that we had to do and make sure that all these posters and the surveys are all perfect. And why is Bethany so picky? Maybe if I was a student, I might be thinking something like that, but it's because we want to honor the people who we're talking to, and we want to make sure that we do the best job possible in amplifying their voices and their experiences for social change. So maybe what comes out of this, this Capstone 2 project, with all of you who are working on issues around international students, is something that we as a program could do. Who knows, right? Because
Right.
we can't change systems all of a sudden, but we can
Right.
have, I would say, like Samantha said, Comfort, that already you had an impact by just sitting and talking to students, right? For an hour. And you listened to someone who hadn't made any connections in 11 months. That's
They were
that's a big deal.
right. It was just they were more than 15. Like a group, yeah, the same thing this group will tell you, the same group, they say I will just go and meet them, like, okay, I'm doing a research, this my research. They start giving me a lot of they're sharing their pains. Like, look at what they have to do, look at what they have to get Canadian experience before they give them job. They were complaining a lot, different
Yeah.
complaint. I was like, I know, like, what can I do to help you guys? I need you guys to get this resource. This is what I know. This is the students service where you get support. If you want to connect, like, I was trying to do a little I can that moment.
Yeah,
But
sure.
in me, I was I was really break down. It was tears coming out of my own eyes. I was like, until I found, I even saw one of our students, Casey Brown. I don't know if he's in this class. And I was sharing that to him. He was like, "Really?" I'm like, "Yeah, they just I just finished with them." So I was so it was a great learning for me to see other people passing this through stress like this, and I didn't know. I was thinking everyone is equal for me. But when I hear their stories, different people hearing what they were saying, it gives me like another perspective, another view of thinking that people are passing through this kind of stress.
Yeah.
So I forgot my own problem. So I had to take theirs. I did something that I can share, get information, job posting. I was like connecting, finding people. Oh, are you guys hiring? I'm sending email to them. Some of them since on Friday. So little I can do, I was able to like share little information resources for them. I hope very soon they get something better.
Yeah, great. Thank you, Comfort. Well, I'll
Thank
tell
you.
you that Mace and Iman are actually doing their project specifically looking at international students and work. And they're doing
Mm.
something that's really timely because there have been a bunch of policy changes that will make it even more difficult for international students around the whole visa and so the Canadian work experience visas and make it more difficult to become citizens in terms of collapsing the policy and making it much more narrow in terms of what the possibilities are. So you are all doing very important research, and I think Samantha, it says also comfort. This is a big structural issue,
Yeah,
and so it's wonderful for you to, um, think about connecting with people, but you
yeah,
can't actually solve, something that has been hundreds of years in the making, right? So in inequalities between the global south and the global north and the dependence on bodies and labor and all of these different things all the stuff that we talked about historically within the program, right? It's like it all it all has a historic context to the present day inequities. But I'm betting that you know, just having a conversation with a student who hasn't made any connections for 11 months, like that might be something. I'm not sure that you can fix and find everyone a job. If you could, maybe you could actually already don't even worry about school anymore. If you have that
I
kind of magic,
no,
if you have that kind of
no,
magic, then you go then you go
I
forward.
wish, I
But
wish.
but you could also ask yourself, is there a small thing I could do?
Yes.
Yeah. So, and
Yeah,
comfort, I say that to you as a woman and so many of us who turn to this field, right? Who are working in human services. So many of us have tender hearts and want to support and help others. And so it is our greatest strength, but also our greatest weakness too, right? So like you have to make sure that you're caring well for yourself. Yeah. Carol, it looked like you were maybe wanting to say something. I don't know. When someone jumps around my board, I wasn't sure whether that was something that you were wanting to say anything. And
Um, you know what? I wasn't, but I wanted to just applaud Comfort. Just I think just having, and that's what we're, that definition of being an ally really
yeah,
comes in. So even though as Bethany had mentioned, it's not going to be a change that's going to happen immediately, but it has to start somewhere, right? So if you're starting that conversation and um letting them know that their voice is being heard, that's where it starts. So it may not, like I said, happen immediately, and it's frustrating when change doesn't happen immediately, but as we know, historically, things happen at some point in time, but like I said,
Yeah,
everything
yeah.
moves in its own pace, but it's great that you're, opening up that conversation, and certainly I think with as much as I'm not thrilled about research, but I do see the value. I'll admit I do see
I
the
know,
value.
I know.
I see the value in terms of, like, I'm much more mindful when, I see something happening, and when I do see a survey come in, whether it either even be just for, like, a banking survey or, a service that you know what I mean? I think I mentioned to you, Bethany, quickly when I had a little stint in the hospital and they wanted me to complete the survey, and it was just around the experience with, how were some of the other patients coping, like, with their mental health, you know what I mean? So I'm like, "Yeah, I'm filling in this survey," right? So it was something before I probably never would have done, but that's the only way where you're gonna see
Yeah,
changes with, people having a voice, and that's the only way it's going to happen. So, so kudos to you, Comfort. You're doing a great job.
yeah, yeah. Thanks, Comfort, and thanks for sharing. And Carol, thank you for sharing as well. Like it is, we have to keep things in perspective, make sure that you're caring for yourself, but you never know what research, like what a research project might do for you in terms of shaping what you end up doing in the future, right? There is space for working as a service provider, supporting immigrants or supporting international students, right? Around settlement or around changing policy, right? Like so, there are places in which each one of you could work. So you know, Jay and Christina and Patian, you might find that what the work that you're doing, you have a real passion for people who are unhoused, and particularly families who are unhoused, and affordable housing, right? And maybe this is the place that's going to bring you to the next place to do that work. So you never know what this research will do. It's always surprising me. You know, it's really when you're as old as I am, you know, like, you know, I've lived 5 decades. That's a lot. But I can look back over my life and I have lots of different experiences, but I can look back and I can see moments in which I had experiences like doing a research project or meeting a person even, and that changed the course of my life. And it changed like the direction that I was going or contributed to a direction, right? So you never know. Don't underestimate this research that you're doing, but also make sure that your scope stays more narrow. And Comfort, I believe that you have the capacity to change the world. But don't try to do it alone. Okay. Um, Now, I know that Sumi was going to also give us an update on where they're at with their projects.
Hi, Professor. Okay, yesterday we got the final confirmation from you. So we are all set, and then yeah, we are excited. And then
Good,
we plan to start recruitment from tomorrow. So we will start sending emails to long-term care homes in
great,
Mississauga.
great,
Yeah. And then I will also email colleagues with whom I studied with in gerontology, because many of them work in long-term care home right now. So, and
great,
then yeah, for some long-term care homes, we may visit in person with posters and official letters like that.
great, great. And Sumi, so um, Milad's group, Rana's group, Carol's group, and Sumi's group.
Mhm.
It's a lot of names to say because all of you have groups of, most of you have
So,
groups of 4 or 3. So I'm
mhm.
just saying those names just start, but I will be sending out with people from Frizana's class to the Center for Elder Research. And so my answer to your question, I realize I didn't get back to you, Samantha and Milad, but what will happen then is, why don't you you wait and see what kind of response you get from that, and then you could follow up with Leah. You follow up with Leah like in 10 days or so. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that
And
sounds good.
and then if you want, you can send off information to your professors in gerontology, but I can also send out an email asking them to share with their students who might also be helpful people. I can post our on our virtual community and say, here are some exciting research projects. Take a look at them, please, and see if there's anyone that you know that might be interested in participating, right? So using the communities that we have, and you never know, like there could be people who can answer we don't have a lot of international students, but we do have probably lots of students who know international students, right? And within our SSW program, SSW Gerontology, there are also lots of international students. Within our community worker program, child and youth care program, we have also lots of international students or people who know international students. And so I will send them out to people within our programs. And then, so as a more broad conversation, and then I would invite you to then circle back around. And if you have it, like if you need more more research participants, then you could reach out with a personal email next week to those specific people that you know. Does that make sense? So from a program, so that people in our program don't get emails from 45 students all asking them about their surveys. It might make more sense for me to send out one email that's very nicely crafted and makes it really easy for them to see what kind of research our students are doing. It's also a way for me to kind of brag and say, I've got these really fantastic students, and please think about participating in their surveys. Does that sound like a plan? I'll also send it out to people across Sheridan as well, because I know lots of people. And so I'm really happy to kind of think strategically about who might be a good fit and who might pass this along to their students. Does that sound like a good thing? I think for all of you, like that will be something that, like, there'll be people from all of those places that will answer your surveys. Yeah. Okay. So, who else do we want? So Milad and Samantha and Emma, tell us what your plan is this week. How are you moving forward?
I guess I can speak.
Okay.
So I've messaged 5 administrators on Facebook groups regarding caregivers, and I'm just waiting to hear back from them so I can make a formal posting.
Okay, that's great. So how are you feeling about it, Milad?
I'm feeling optimistic. We're just
Good.
hoping that the responses will start coming in. But regardless, this is fantastic news to hear that you're gonna send it out to
Yeah,
numerous
yeah, yeah.
people. So this is just really good news. This is really fantastic to hear.
Good. Now let me ask, Comfort and Rawa, did you expect that you were gonna have 39 participants by the time you got to class this week?
No,
No.
but
Okay.
Same here.
But it was a good surprise.
Yeah.
So you
A
never
good
know. You
surprise.
never know how people are going to pick up. Sorry, it's that shoulder weather where it's where you never sure what the right clothing is to wear. I had to get rid of my sweater. So yeah, so it felt really, it was a nice surprise. And
Right.
and like Jay and Christina and Patian, how are you feeling when you like looked at your survey? Like, did you find yourself going back after the first time you looked at it? Did you keep going back and looking at it and being like, oh my gosh, it's growing, it's growing? Did anyone do that? Either any of you do it? Yeah, Comforts. Yeah. You go back every day. Yeah, it's a great, it's kind of like a, you know, this like whoop, like you just kind of go in there for a moment. Would either one of you be interested? So either one of the groups, so Comforts and Rawa or Patian and Christina and Jay, would either one of you be interested in us looking at what that data looks like so far so that you can look at the kind of analysis tools that you'll be able to look at just for a, is anyone interested in us doing that with their research? Yes. Okay. So Patin, you'd like to do that. And the reason I say is I can show you like, you know, kind of like any research, like I can show you what, so the question was, would you be interested? So your next step, once you've got all of your research participants, is that you're going to start an analysis process. And so we're going to look at how the data comes to you and within MS Forms. And that's kind of a useful thing because that will be your next step. But I'm going to guarantee you that once I've shown it to you, oh, you started to see it, Christina. Yeah, it's pretty cool. Did you think it was cool, Christina? Yeah, you like it for sure. All right, so let's just look at, so back in the day, you know, back, 30 years ago, if you were doing research, you would not have a tool like this to do the analysis for you. You would actually have to look at the data and you'd be making the graphs yourself. You would plug the information into a very rudimentary Excel spreadsheet, but there weren't codes written for how to do it automatically. And what has happened even in the last 5 or 10 years is that we have these programs that are easily at our fingertips that allow us to be able to draw on the kind of data analysis that was only available with really expensive software. So, I mean, that's the nice thing about technology, right? Is that you've got these things. So let's just look at, and I'm just going to go to my MS Forms. And here's the research. So you'll see here at the top, there is Patian, who's right in here. And so there's the survey. But in order for you to be able to see what is actually there, you go over to, does everyone see this right here that says responses where, oh, look at that. There's 22 now. You got one since we started looking at this, right? And so each of you who is doing a survey will actually have the same function. So you are able to click on responses, and then you get this. I see Comfort looking very closely at this and very interested in this. So it gives you some information, and this information can be used in your analysis. So there have been 22 responses. The average time to complete is 17 minutes and 17 seconds, and that's pretty impressive. Now, that can also be a little bit skewed. Anyone want to guess why that could be a little bit skewed? Like maybe a little bit longer than it actually took people to complete it? How many people have ever stopped in the middle of completing a survey that they were doing? Right? I've totally done it. Yeah. And so then it can definitely increase what The person could have been multitasking. Yeah, of course. So this is definitely the way. And Rawa, were you going to say the same thing?
Yes, Bethany.
Yeah. So that's
I got this experience, yeah.
yeah.
When
So
the day
this
is long, yeah.
yeah, so it might be that there's a few like that it won't have done that completely, but probably the average time to complete wasn't like everyone wasn't spending more than 20 minutes, right, on the survey. You probably said that they would take 10 to 15 minutes to complete it, and that's probably pretty accurate, even though this number is higher. So you have two ways to look at your results in MS Forms. One is to open up your results in Excel, but I'm going to do that last because this stuff that I'm going to show you is more, it has more impact when we first start looking at it. So right from the beginning, now you can view results. And when you click on the view results, you can actually look at each of the surveys individually, right? So if you're interested, so the results summary is actually pulling together all of the data, whereas if you do the review results, you'll see that this person took 21 minutes and 22 seconds to complete, and that was number 20, that was number 3. Number 4 took 9 minutes. Number 5 took 25 minutes. So you can kind of look and see how much time people took to complete it. It's just kind of a fun thing. Yeah, it is pretty cool, Jay. I agree with you. I never stop enjoying looking at what you're able to do. So you can go through and look at that. So I would imagine that this person took a little bit of a pause, right? Possibly. Or you might have someone who wrote so much stuff and you'll be like, oh yeah, no wonder they took 45 minutes. They spent a long time on this survey, right? So you'll be able to look at that. It is pretty cool. Who knew that you would think that something, it's even cooler than a video game, almost. Um, and so then when we look at kind of the results summary, it goes through question by question and looks at what you're doing. Here is it provides, this is a really boring pie chart. Why is it a boring pie chart? Because this is the consent one. So in fact, this is exactly what you want your pie charts on the consent questions to look like, because you don't want to have 7 people who are not able to complete the survey, right? So out of your 22 people, you had 22 people who said that they consented to participate. That's great. Sometimes you'll see that you have 27, like you'll have 27 or 37 people, and then you look and you're like, oh, there were actually 5 people who didn't consent to participate. So even though they started to complete the survey, we can't count them as participants. So that's just another little piece. So then there's also some fun stuff. So you see how they have 2 more little tabs, and it's more details or insights. So then when you say more details, you get to see this is pretty boring because everyone's saying the same thing. But when you get to some of your other questions, they're much more interesting and you can look at what each person said. Then you have your insights. And this is kind of fun too. When it comes time to do your reports, you can copy and paste these pieces. And if you love the way that this looks, then you can actually pin them to the question so that it shows up underneath. If you think, oh, I love the way that looks, like that is really interesting to me, or you can unpin it. So you can do that for yourself, just for the way that you are actually doing the analysis. Okay, you like the way it looks, the pinning option, pretty cool, right? This one will be much more interesting, right? Because you've got this variation of ages. And so the way that it's represented is going to look a lot more fun. And so it looks like the majority of people. So when you're actually writing up your research report, you're going to say, you can look at the numbers, and then you would actually find out your percentages by dividing the number by the full number of people who completed it. And then you find out this many percentage of people were between the ages of 25 and 34. And once again, more details, more interesting. These ones are never as interesting as in the open-ended questions that you have. And then your insights, they'll do fun things. And they'll sometimes tell you also, they're telling you that that in fact they and the majority answered yes for question 16. So they're actually telling you about they're starting to compare it to other questions, right? So 5% of people were between the ages of 45 and 54, but the majority answered no, but I would like to in the future for question 25. And so then you could pin that and say, oh, what was question 25 again? Or what was question 16 again? Or question 25 again? And you could pin that there because you're like, I wonder, I'm going to go back and look at, is there any comparison? Is this a place where I could like intersect these and come to a deeper understanding of what someone who is between the ages of 45 and 54 think, and what their answer was for question number 25. So these are the things that you're able to start doing. And then you've got really some fun little graphs that you can pull from. And it looks like there's a wide variety of people who've completed your survey. And I always like to see diversity when I'm getting answers to a survey, because it's telling me that I've got a diverse group of people. And the majority of people so far that have completed the survey are renting their homes. And a few are owning, and another big group of them are shared accommodation. And you could actually look at ages and living situations as well. Like you could compare those two variables and look at it and see if it tells you anything. Which statement best describes your gender? So by far, you've got a majority of people who are women who've answered this. And who wants to guess that whether or not many of the surveys will have a similar feedback? Anyone want to guess if more women or more men complete surveys? Women. Yeah. And you're right. Yeah.
More women.
Yeah. So more women are going to complete than men. And that is just women are often more willing to take the time, see the value. And yeah, so this wasn't a surprise to any of you, but it's interesting to be able to say, right? And but then you have this interesting thing that can happen when you look at do women respond in different ways than men? But you're going to be able to look at that because you know who the men are based on these details, right? So you know that, in fact, you could look back and say, okay, so participant number 8, participant number 4, and participant number 20, all of those were men. Is there anything interesting that they've said that's different than the women? And can we say anything about how women and men might approach this topic differently or might understand it differently? And then, but you see, we're only on number 5. How many people here feel like they're kind of like in a riveting movie as you're looking at this data? Anyone feel like this is maybe the most interesting thing that's happened to you all day? Yeah. Right? It's pretty fun. And comfort, this isn't even your survey. And so here's another interesting thing. You really looked at a diversity of immigration status, and everyone who's completed so far is a Canadian citizen. And don't worry when you see something like this, because it's going to say something else to you. So why is it that it is only Canadian citizens who have completed this? You don't have to say this to me right now, but you might be able to say, we might have more connections that are Canadian citizens. And or you might say, someone who's a permanent resident or a refugee claimant or an international student isn't in the communities that we sent it out to. Or at this point, maybe you want to actually make some connections with Comfort and her connection to international students and see if they have anything that they want to say about people who are unhoused, right? So you might want to look at some of those comparisons. Patian, what were you saying? Or the audience you reached? Absolutely. The people you know. And that's the thing about snowballing, right? And so when you were writing that, it's very easy. Nothing that you've done, nothing that you do with your survey is wrong, but you're going to look at maybe this is a limitation to the survey, that we didn't have anyone complete the survey who wasn't a Canadian citizen. And it had to do with, one, the people we know, and maybe two, that it's safer for people who are Canadian citizens might have might feel an increased amount of security around fulfilling a survey talking about homelessness, right? So like all of those pieces. Now, someone said, was it Patchen who said you really liked number? Yeah. So this is at the crux of what you're doing, right? You're very interested in what do different people say. So the 5 different areas that you've got are a service worker, a service provider working in housing. You've got the fewest of those. So that's interesting. Service provider working in community, that's a good chunk of people. An ally to people who are unhoused, that's almost 50%. And then a family or friend of someone who's unhoused. That's also interesting in terms of, so you've got a nice variety there, although they were all Canadian citizens. And then you have other. Often in the other category, you can have allied to people. Oh, they could sometimes select 2 things if they want to select 2 things. We ask people to say, can you tell us if you are, so someone said, so one of the others you can identify was, I'm a student. And the other living at home with family. So you had some other categories, but really interestingly enough, you can identify what those other answers are. So far, I'm feeling really, really great about the demographic questions, and lots of you weren't going to have a lot of demographic questions, but do you see now why it's really important to have some of those demographic questions? Yeah, because you're able then. So this is this is where we stop. We usually have around kind of 4 to 6 demographic questions, and then that helps us when we are actually analyzing the data. So how significant do you think the issue of homelessness is in your community? Look at that. You've got no one thought it wasn't a problem, and that's probably not surprising because you're probably not going to complete a survey about homelessness if you don't think that it's a problem. Does that make sense? So people feel like it is a moderate issue, but most people think it's a major issue. So you've got people who are really concerned about the issue of homelessness. Then you have this really interesting thing. So key factors, and looking at it, you've got another really nice bar graph that's looking, and you've got lots of people talking about increased immigration. So these are, and this was a question that we put in, knowing that this is something that is actually a very common conception, that there's a link between immigration and affordable housing, where where you're not saying it is, but you're asking for people's perspectives, right? So you know that you put that in, and when you're doing the analysis, you're going to be able to speak to something that is one of those threads that runs through how we understand how people perceive people who are unhoused. And which of the, look at this one. You thought the other one looked like art? Look at this one. That looks pretty cool, doesn't it? And so people were allowed to choose from all of these different ideas, and these were all perceptions of people who are unhoused. And yeah, you can't buy this, right? You can't buy research results. This is something that you do through the work that you do in creating a survey and in doing recruitment. And so you've got lots of good data to look at here. Oh, look at this one. This one will be interesting to you. An individual who has family and community support. And very few people thought that this was a common thing that is true about people who are unhoused. And that is definitely something you're going to be able to make a comment on it. People who are down on their luck. Also, so that it's not just random. So there's lots and lots. Look at this. Look at this one. People who have made bad choices. You've got a lot of people people who've made bad choices. Individuals who can't afford housing. So there's so many things that you can take away from this. Yeah, Jay, it does get more beautiful. You're absolutely right. Are there any of the phrases above that surprised you or that you identified with? And so some people weren't surprised, but others were. And so this is, and here's another fun thing. So you can look at it this way. So look at this. I think the phrase regarding education surprised me. Degrees won't guarantee getting financial support for housing, but look at these. So this is some rich data that you've got that you can look at. Some of them are very ridiculous and make no sense as to why someone is unhoused. Sure. And yet many people selected it. Isn't that interesting? Right? But then they'll also do some fun. They'll do a little like word cloud for you. And so from all of the answers that they had for this question, there is a code that actually put together all the different words that are represented, and it kind of looks pretty, right? So you know that housing was the biggest piece around people who are unhoused. You also know that current and lower income and job and degrees and support are all words that people generated when they looked at this question. Do you believe that homelessness hinders economic development and has a negative impact on communities? Yes and no. And then share why you believe has a negative impact. Once again, this is another one of the times where not everyone shares, but some people do. I'm not exactly sure how to expand on this, but homelessness can put streaming on social services like hospitals, law enforcement, and shelters when that money could be put elsewhere to support economic growth. Additionally, it can impact potential investment opportunities, lower property value, and decrease interest in tourism, which all bring in money to help the economy grow, putting the community into a vulnerable cycle of homelessness. So you've got some people who've really spent some time here, really thinking about about that connection between economic development and people who are unhoused. And once again, you get this. Homelessness ends up being a big word here, and communities and people and economic growth. And what kind of response do you think impacts? And then you've got more. Look at this. Already, look at that. Look at this rich, rich data. And we're going to, in the case of these different questions here, you're going to be able to pull out, and we're going to do some work with. Don't worry, you don't need to know how to do it right now, but you're going to have a chance to look at it and to pull out different themes out of this data that people are sharing. Just looking at, yeah, so many themes, right, Samantha? Yeah, so this is, so just to give you, we won't spend any more time on this, but I just wanted to show you, and I think I've made my point that research is cool, and you're all totally glad that you've done research now that you got to this point, and up until this point, you weren't sure whether or not this was useful. Am I right? Yeah, so Rana and then Comforts.
Just I want to ask, how can I use such kind of tools if I am doing interview? So, hello? Yes. How can I use it if I'm doing interview?
Sorry, that is my Alexa speaking again. My husband has an alarm set in the other room, which is driving me crazy, but you guys probably can't hear it. Rana, don't worry. I'm going to show you a tool that you can use for your data. And in fact, you'll get similar work for this. You don't get the same kind of demographic data in the same way because you're working with smaller numbers, right?
Yes, and we don't have a lot of
so there is a tool that you're going to use to help analyze your data, where you're going to be able to create themes in it and do coding. But the reason that I got you to ask those questions around demographic data is that you're going to be creating your own table. So you and your group are going to have 20 participants, and you're going to be making up a table that's actually creating a profile for each of the people that you researched. So you're going to have a more interviews have a more in-depth look at a smaller group of people.
Okay, thank you.
Does that make sense? Yeah, and don't worry, it's really fun too.
No problem.
Yeah. Okay, yeah, Comforts.
Yeah, but I was thinking about this. I can show, with mine be like this, ours be like this,
Yeah.
just the same graph.
You're gonna see something similar. We can look at it. I'm
yes, if
I'm
you
gonna
can.
stop sharing right now. I'm gonna put this on pause for a minute, for 5 minutes, so that you guys can all have a little bit of a bio break. Now that you've had so much excitement, you might need to take, you know, a cup of tea to calm yourselves down, because it's really been the best thing that's happened in a week. And then we'll come back and we'll actually take a look at yours. And I'm going to get you to share your screen and to show us your data. Does that sound good? All right. Excellent. I need to go turn this alarm off. And we have Comforts Group ready, able, and willing to share their research.
Yeah, but the one that I have here is not showing responses. I'm just asking Rawa to share if she can share for
Okay,
our
perfect.
screen.
Yeah, that's great. We'll check it out for you.
Thank you, Bethany.
Yeah, of course. Of course. Um,
Bethany, sorry, before she gets ready, maybe you can do other person's own. I'm trying to connect with her.
Bethany, I'm trying to share my screen, but
Okay.
It says
What kind of
host
message?
host disabled.
Okay.
Host disabled
Try it now. Sorry about that.
Okay.
I had a muscle memory of disabling things earlier today, but it was obviously not in this class. Sometimes I'm online with lots of with lots of conversations. Okay, perfect. Yeah. Look at this. You even went up one since we completed. So yeah, as you can see, the you've got the same kind of idea. It's not surprising that your international student population, the majority of students, especially when you were talking about younger students' comforts, are between the ages of 18 and 25. It is interesting that you've got some international students that are 46 to 50. Like that's an interesting thing. And when you were putting all of this together, you were probably thinking to yourselves, really, do you think that there'll actually be someone who is 61 to 65? Whatever the case may be. Yeah. And you'll see this is I do not meet the eligibility criteria. Now, of the people that answered it, so this is another thing that can happen. You've still got 26 people that you can look at. So even though there are 40 people, so why don't you click the more details, and I'm going to show you something that sometimes happens that can give you a false positive in terms of someone answering it. So if you click Rawa on just above, you click on the more details. Just up in the corner here, underneath results survey, it says more details, just over other corner. More details underneath results summary. Yeah. So you'll see now, so scroll down and look at all of these. So you had a number of people who actually went into the survey but didn't complete it. So they didn't even get far enough. So, but you register people going into the survey, but they didn't even complete the question number 1 about consent. So you still have a great number of responses, but it's possible. And here's what I see happening. You have this lovely group of people who you're talking to, and they're like, look at this. Should we complete this? Do you think so? That nice woman, she came to the library. And do you think we should complete it? Okay. All right. I'm going to do it later. Let's do it together. Let's do it. So you've got a bunch of people. So they're going in, but they're not completing it at the time, and they're closing it. And then you get a false positive. But you can always tell when you look at the number of people. Yeah, you can close that now, Rawa. So you can always tell when you've got people who have who've actually answered that consent question. And that's why that consent question is so important, because you need to know how many people have actually gone through the whole survey. And it actually makes it better in the end, because if you're looking at all of these false positives, it's all of these blank surveys that everything is blank, and it kind of messes things up. Whereas if they don't answer this question here, then they're not going to impact the survey data afterwards. But it might give you a little bit of an upset feeling in your stomach because you thought you had 40 and you had 27. 27 is great. And this is, one day of doing this work, right? So I'm not worried at all. And so if you scroll down, you're going to see that you've got the same beautiful graphs that everyone else has. And you don't have to click on more details or insights for any of these. But you've really got some great, and the massive orange for all women again. So look at that. Oh, interesting. So you had people complete things without completing the consent. That's interesting. Because you're right, you do have people, so you're going to have to, and here is a sad thing that happens. You're going to have to go through and look at the numbers, and you are not able, if someone did not provide consent, like if they did not click that off, you cannot use their data. And so when it comes time, I will help you kind of determine which ones you need to get rid of. And this happened, you know what? There was one student last year who had the person who had the best answers for everything. They were under the age of 18. And so we couldn't use that data as official data. Although we ended up being able to integrate it some way into the conversation. Because when you have someone who doesn't click the consent, then you can't use their data. So this is good news. People completed it. So when you are going on your next, oh, there's an interesting one, 30, okay. All right, that adds up. When you're going on your next outreach movement, Comfort, make sure that you tell people that they need to click the consent or that their opinions can't be included. And this is what's difficult about a anonymous survey, is that you don't know who the person was who didn't complete it. And that's always disappointing. And this is the heartbreak of research. So we were up on a mountaintop and now we're on in a little valley, but don't worry, it's just a little valley. Okay, so keep moving down. Excellent. I do not have children. So you can say about most of your participants is that they're between the ages of 18 and 25, and they don't have children. And so this would be a typical undergrad international student. I would imagine that a number of the people who are older and have children would be graduate students. Many of them, some of them will be undergraduate students. There's no one idea of who a international student is. And country of origin, you've got other. So you've got a lot of people from India, a couple of people from Canada. That's interesting. I'm not sure that they understood, the people from Canada understood but maybe there's and then other, please specify. So then you're going to go to, once again, more details. And you're going to look at, so many of them who were from an other place didn't identify. And so I wonder if that is very interesting. So they're automatically prompted to include what it was. Like they're prompted to enter in what the other is, but all of these people who completed this didn't specify. I would imagine, I don't know. We can't guess. We can't guess what that is. We might be able to look at some other data to help us understand what those blanks are. So these are things, these are totally normal things, and we let people check more than one. So you've got, of your 26 people, you know that 18 of them are from India, but they might have been from other countries as well, right? And the ones who said they're from Canada, they're probably saying, I live in Canada now, and I'm from India, or I'm from another country. So these are tricky things, but don't worry, we work them out. And okay, so you can close that, Rawa. Okay. So this is one of the interesting, so this is around safety in housing. So now you're getting to this, and it looks like, you know, there are a number of factors that impact how people feel safe. And so you've got some good data there as well. It looks like you've got some consistency in your data as well in terms of the people who completed it. They were either strongly agreed or strongly disagreed or disagree. Like you have, it's very well plotted across the survey. Okay, keep going down. So most of the students, and this will also not surprise you, are from colleges, right? So that's not surprising because you were actually at a college where you were actually making connection with students, right? And you've also got some really good data when it comes to where people are living. So not a lot of people are living with families. A lot of people are living in an off-campus apartment or house. And then going down to the next question, you're going to be able to do some interesting work. So how many people do you live with? Some people live with 8 or more people, and it'll be interesting to see who those people are. The majority of people live with 2 people, but you're going to get some students, and it'll be interesting to see the off-campus apartment or house. Is that something where you've got students who are living with 8 or more people? So I've had lots of students in my history who've lived with sometimes 14 people in a household, doing something called warm bed. So you rent a room and you rent a bed for 12 hours a day, and you share, like you get the morning shift or the evening shift to share a bed. So you can have lots of people living in a space. So it'll be interesting for you to kind of do some variate analysis between those 2 questions. So those were great questions, and they're going to give you some really interesting data. Okay. Moving down, now you're looking at some of the impacts of affordable housing, and of course, financial stress and high stress impacting mental health. It's interesting. There are going to be students, you're going to have another research survey that's looking at international students and mental health, right? And so there'll be some ways that your research is talking to each other, and your colleagues who are doing work on international students and work are going to have other things to speak to, because all of these things overlap in some ways. And you've asked good questions to be able to have your surveys talk to each other. Okay, how satisfied are you with the support? And you've got people who are satisfied, but just an equal number of people who are not satisfied, right? And there why don't you go to the more details in question 13, Rawa? And you're going to get some, this is where you're starting to get some of that rich qualitative data. Such as, I'm an introvert, and as a result, I prefer the comfort of my house, but because of the outrageous amount it costs to find affordable housing, I end up going with lousy, not safe locations and having crazy housemates, and it always stresses me out. I have sleepless nights because of the constant noises and not feeling safe. Right? So you've got some really good, and you'll be able to draw some themes out of this data. So way to go. You've got your data. Nice work. Over stressful, lack of job opportunities, mental health. It's impacted my mental health. I can't even sleep for 2 hours. Poor lighting has impacted my eyes. Only allowed to use for certain times. So you got lots of things that are probably going to break your heart, Comfort, as you read them. But important data and important voices to be shared. Yeah, Rava, you can close that. Oh, I've been missing the chat. I've been so riveted by the massive orange. So in 12 is very interesting to see the results. Yeah, absolutely. It's this is all interesting. See, look at how fascinating all of this is. And then you've got another question that's asking about academic performance, right? The whole reason of of what you're doing, And if you go down to question 15, I think you asked people to, how do you feel it's impacted? You only got one person who is going to say anything, and the response was, yeah. It has. So that one wasn't necessarily the most meaty. And sometimes you got questions like that, but look how many responses you've got around, would you like to provide additional insights or experiences regarding how housing issues impact your life? We've got some more wordy people than our yeah person. And yeah, they typed something. It's true, Samantha. So yeah, look at this. I have to do my assignments. I have to work part-time. I live with my kids, constant stress, low grades, lack of patience. Yeah, so lots of, it's a real challenge, impossible to find a reasonably priced rental. I have to take the bus or train for 2 hours, and the data goes on, right? Sleepless nights. So you got a lot of sleeplessness, a lot of physical and mental impacts that are that people are really sharing in terms of their experiences. And controlling landlords, asking what I'm doing and not helping them clean, poor lighting, denied to change due to electricity bills, right? So having to deal with cold in the basement. So you didn't ask if people lived in the basement, but now you're finding out that, you know, those cheap apartments are these illegal apartments down in people's basements, right? So very, very interesting. So much great data. And I think that brings you, oh yeah, thank you for taking the time to share your survey. And look, some people answered, thank you. Look at these responses. So people added additional responses these are messages for you. So let's look at the more details there, Rawa. Yeah, so it took me 20 minutes. Thank you for the concern. Good luck. Thank you. You're welcome. You're welcome. Thank you so much. Thank you. I'm happy to help. I wish you success. So yeah, very nice. This is lovely. How are you feeling? How are you feeling now?
Very good, very good.
Yeah.
Thank you
What
for
about
this learning.
you, Rawa?
Oh my God.
It's pretty cool.
Yeah, it's too many things to figure out and to study.
Yeah.
It's really rich.
Yeah, it is very rich.
Yeah,
And you guys did this, right? Like, it's great. Congratulations. And for those of you who haven't gotten to this point yet, I promise you'll all get there. And I promise you'll all have things to share. And each of you will be brought to tears at some point. And hopefully it'll be because do you want to just download I'll actually show you. I'm going to show this to you because it's a little bit confusing to do this. I'm going to just show you all why in the world you might use a something like, I'm going to use Jay's in my survey. All right. So like I said before, you want to
sorry, do you want me to share it again?
no, don't worry about it.
Sorry about that.
No, oh gosh, don't worry. I just thought I would do actually in an easier way because I have to do a little something with this. So this is just, you know how each of you had, so Christina's and Rawa and Comfort's download a copy in Excel. So this is all of your data, and it is quite useful, right? So we open up the Excel spreadsheet, and I'm going to just have to stop sharing and then open again because it's going to be a new window. But I'm going to show you why this is actually useful for you to look at as well. So we're going to look at this, and it's got so much data in it. It'll tell you when people completed things. And then you've got all of the information for all of the people who participated, right? So in this one, it was actually 73 people who participated in this one. But you can actually like rearrange things in here. So you could say, I want to do this here, from here to here. I want to do, you want to make sure you download this first, because once you've downloaded it, you can do anything to it and it's not going to mess up your data. But if I wanted to see some themes emerging, I would sort A to Z, and then all of the people who are 18 to 29 years old are in one place, like everyone. So I could do this in any way I want. So if I wanted to see how many people are doing bachelor degrees, I could instead just look, and then I could see all of the different thematic areas by selecting and then sorting. And so it's kind of nice for actually taking that data, because the data that's provided and the data that's analyzed for you by MS Forms, you might want to look at it a little bit differently. You might think, I wonder if, I'm curious about, and you might want to be able to take all of that information away. And oh, I see that we have someone. Can we use this data and compile our graphs here instead of using the MS Forms? Of course you can, Samantha. No problem. You can create, and I've actually asked that Suvin, who's our embedded tutor, that he'll do some work with you if you want to play around with an Excel spreadsheet as well. To do some more advanced work. If you feel comfortable with Excel, then you can absolutely do that. Where I find it especially helpful is just around the questions that are more quantitative. And so pulling all of this together, it can be kind of nice that I would actually copy and paste it into another document to look at all of the data together, because the way that MS Forms pulls it apart is different. Like, so you can play with it in different ways. It's not something you have to do. I have no problem with you using just the data and in the ways that MS Forms has done it, because it's very it really is instinctive, and it's great. But if you feel like playing around and you know it's a low risk situation, you download it and you don't do anything with the data, it's not going to mess up all your data. It's just a data sheet, so you can kind of play around with it and be like, oops, uh-oh, I didn't do it right. Okay, no problem. It's still there. I just downloaded a sheet. So anyway, that's a way. Sometimes I do my best learning when I'm kind of just fitzing around with things. You know, you're just kind of looking at things, trying it out. I'm not going to destroy it, but I might discover something new. And so you could absolutely do that with the Excel spreadsheet. And I know that you can also go and have a session with Suvin and like make your own pretty graphs and choose your own colors and all of those things if you want to do it. You can also decide that in the context of course-based research that has a limit on time of when you need to hand in your research report, that's something you're going to do in the future, and I will think no less of anyone. So you'll be absolutely fine. So tell me how you're feeling now. How are people feeling with this? All right. Comfort is feeling good. Carol, and then Samantha, let's hear from you.
A quick question actually I had. I'm feeling a lot like looking at the data, and it's amazing to see how you know, just building upon it, how much information should, like, I know I said I wasn't too keen on research before, but I'm starting to, you know,
What? Carol, you're starting to have a collegial respect for
yes,
for research. All right.
I'm starting to
Not loving it
embrace
yet?
it. Yes, because you know, But so what I wanted to, and obviously, as you know, this is kind of a learning curve for all of us here.
Yeah.
So with the survey that we were just going through with Comfort's team,
Yeah.
is there a way, like, if they clicked on that they do not consent, where it prompts them not to go any further? Like, is it designed that way, or does it automatically, like, where it'll actually just shut down the survey just to avoid that happening?
Yeah, it does. So and Carol, when I did your survey, I did that too. It just takes them to the end of the survey.
Okay.
There's nothing that prevents them from coming back in again, right?
Oh.
Because it's an anonymous survey. So they could come back in 20 times and like press like, but I mean, I don't think like who's going to do that, right?
Right.
But if they did that and they were like, oh, maybe I didn't understand that, and then came back in,
Okay.
they could come back in again if they got shut down and they thought, oh shoot, I made a mistake. Then it's no problem for them to come back in again.
Okay, I see. Okay, thank
Yeah.
you.
Yeah, no problem. And Samantha, you had your hand up too, or were you just raising your hand because you were happy?
I don't know what just happened. I think my hormones just hit me and I hit emotions, but I was just gonna say I am so like proud of everybody and this looks so good and I feel so hopeful. I'm so emotional. I'm so sorry. But I'm just like so excited for everybody and these results and the imp I don't know what's wrong with me, but this is great. I feel good.
Good, good. And Samantha, yeah, I mean, there are certain times, yeah, I got floods of emotions too. And it's, yeah, don't worry, hormones. We all got them. And might see my dogs are even just going crazy for a bark outside. You didn't feel like you, and you know what, like when I start reading research, it's not surprising that you feel emotional. We sometimes think about, like, we can sometimes feel really hopeless when we look at, like, we talk a lot about structural oppression in this program, and we look at ways in which we can have a positive impact. And research, although it doesn't change everything real quick, it can have an impact. And isn't it nice to know that the work that we're doing and the work that you're learning how to do is going to have an impact? It's an exciting thing. So heck, maybe actually we're all the crazy ones because we're not teary-eyed. I'm not sure. So no, never any shame and emotion. So thank you for bearing that emotion for all of us, and for the stories that we got little pieces of as well. I think that as we read those stories, there's going to be real power in the words of the people who you've talked to. So thank you so much. And it looks like you got a lot of love from people in the chat. And Jay says, I agree with Carol. I didn't like research before. I don't know, it felt confused, but now I'm liking it. Yeah, and you know, I often end up, because I'm the program coordinator, and I talk to students sometimes when they're really happy and sometimes when they're totally stressed out, and they'll say to me, this research thing, Bethany, I just don't get it. It's really stressing me out. And I say, just keep on it. I promise. I promise. No one loves all of the work around doing a literature review. No one said, oh, literature reviews are my favorite parts of human research. No, the favorite part that everyone has for human research is the human part of it. And you're in that part now, and you're being rewarded for all of the work that you did to actually create responsible research projects. And you're right, all of you should be proud of each other, proud of yourselves, proud of each other. And this is a lovely group of people. I agree with you. And I feel like it's such a privilege because I get to come in when you're doing the fun human participant stuff, not the, okay, we need to be more ethical. How do we create an ethical research study? I've been able to join you at the fun part too. So we're all pretty privileged here. And I appreciate, because of my own experience doing research, I really appreciate the work that each of you did to get to this point. And sometimes kicking and screaming if you really didn't like research and felt confused by it or frustrated by it. And Jay, proud of us for doing so well, helping to fill the gaps and raise awareness with our projects. Yeah, yeah. And all of this is good. Like this is at the heart of research, at the heart of everything we do is community, right? And this is important. Oh, look at all the love. Look at all the love for everyone. That's fantastic. And you're going to keep, you guys have got this. And I know that a few of you are just getting ready to get going. And you know what? Those who have come before are going to be able to support you. And by the time you get to writing the research report, there's going to be something maybe that you can support with, right? So there will be times, and when we get to the knowledge mobilization part, that will be another piece. And so one of the things that we did when we designed these research courses is that we made a community of practice. And you are a community of practice. And the reason that this experience of research is so rich is because of each other. If you're doing research all alone, I never like doing research by myself. Frizana and I often do research, and we often do research with other people as well, because we feel that there is a richness that comes from multiple voices and encouragement. The nice thing is that we don't all have big emotional outbursts at the same time necessarily. So Samantha, it could be me next time, or it could be, could be Comfort. And Comfort opened us up with a very emotional and powerful encounter with some of her research subjects, right? So all of this is good. I know that Iman and Mace and Salwa, we need to connect right after this. Are you guys able to connect with me? Is that all right with you?
Yes.
Can we do that just so that we can get you onto your next step?
Okay.
And but I think for the rest of you, you are all on your way. I know Sumi, you and Helan are going to start recruitment tomorrow, but I think like we're all at the last, you guys are all at the last, like at the last stage of this, of either you've started your recruitment or you're on the cusp of that adventure. And it's going to be fun. So remember how I said to you that your midterm assignments was going to actually be easy? It will be, because all you're doing. So next week, we're going to talk about the midterm assignment. It's due in week 7. But what I'm going to encourage you to do is to sit down after class and just write for 10 minutes about how you are feeling, about where you're at today. And you're going to have a third of your assignment done. Does that sound like a plan? Okay.
Yes, thank you. I really thank you, Bethany, for making us paying attention to details we didn't thought of. Thank you. It's very
That
useful.
is my job. It's my
very
job,
useful.
Broa.
Thank
And
you so much.
yeah, and congratulations, everyone. And Iman and Mace and Salwa, you're going to be off to the races by tomorrow. 100%. I know this. Okay, so I'm gonna close off class now. I'm gonna take off the recording, and of course I'll post it if you want to go back and look at how we looked at all those things as a review, and wish you a wonderful week.